Welcome, everybody, to week 4 of the Age of Exploration. We've got another exciting week, a lot of fun things to talk about as we keep moving toward these huge voyages that are really going to uncover a lot of stuff. So far, it's been incremental improvements, incremental learning, learning where this is, where that is it worth it, all this stuff. And next week, we're going to talk about the technologies that made all of this possible. And then we jump in to Vasco da Gama's voyage. And from there, we'll go to Christopher Columbus. And then following him, we'll do Magellan's circumnavigation of the globe. And throughout all of that, we'll have supplemental content where we're learning bits and pieces of other explorers and what they're doing and different things that are happening. But we've done all of the background work after today. Well, I guess next week's part of the background work too, setting the stage for what's about to happen in these huge long voyages that are going to start occurring and just it's exciting stuff. Let me share my screen and we'll just jump right in if I can push the right buttons on my screen, my computer. There we go, I think. Am I sharing my screen? Do you guys see the cover page? Excellent. Some head nods, a thumbs up.
Oh, now I see it. Now I see it.
Excellent. Might take a second for this image to get from my internet to yours. It's traveling the globe right now, just like our explorers. The Yeah, very different travel though. All right. So here we are for today. We'll do a few more introductions, although I think there's two people here that have not yet introduced themselves, at least in this class. And so there are a few people who are taking the class and watch the recording each week. And so we'll probably just try and catch them if they're ever able to join us live. But if you remember, introductions will be your name, your age, where you're from, and where you're living. Maybe those two places are different. Who knows? Your favorite ice cream, and then your favorite hobby. And I might ask you a few follow-up questions based on your hobby. And that's it. Pretty easy. But we'll get to that. I have a few things I wanted to discuss, sort of my own, according to my research. As I've learned about the age of exploration, things that really caught my attention I thought were pretty cool. So I'll talk about a few of those. And then we'll get into the lessons between the lines, your discussion points that you guys have put on the Mighty Networks app. Same with a few of my favorite things. Um, and then next week, there will not be any reading. And I think I have a little bit more detail about what we will be doing. So we're going to have a writing assignment. I'll talk about that in a little bit more in just a second, probably on the next slide, actually. And so next week, no reading, but instead of the reading, there will be some research required of you, a little bit of writing, and then next class period, I'll have you come and report 2, 3 minutes on your topic. I'm going to be doing research on the topics as well, so I can help fill in some of the stuff. But next week, no reading. There will be a writing assignment, and then quite a bit of supplemental content of just 10, 15-minute videos that are going into some of these technologies so that we can get a deeper, broader overview of what made it possible for these people to not fly around the earth, to sail around the earth. Flight was not invented for a while after these guys. Um, so anyway, that's what we're doing today. So introductions, a few discussion points of mine, lessons between the lines, and then a few of my favorite things. Announcements. A reminder, office hours are on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Mountain, 11 p.m. Portugal. And we use the same Zoom link as the class. So just go onto the events page and join from there. I've had a few people that have been coming to the office hours. I think it's really helpful. Um, they have been talking about projects that they're working on for the classes that I'm teaching, and it's going to be pretty cool. We have students that are preparing a research project where they're going to write essays and sort of short biographies about some of the explorers. One student in my World War II class is writing a short story, historical fiction based on some research that he's doing. Another one is doing stop motion animation with Legos to depict a World War II battle that occurred right when the Germans invaded Poland. So there's a lot of cool things that people are working on these additional projects to take their learning and what they're doing in the class just a step further. That's what I've talked about so far in the office hours. It's been rewarding. It's been fun for me um, to help guide in that process. So if you want to stop by my office hours, if you have any questions, concerns, if you're confused about any of the topics or you just want to talk about more, that's where I'm there at that time for about a half hour. Last night I ended up going over about 10 minutes because of the discussions that were happening. So join me there. Next week's homework, as I mentioned, this is the page where there's a little bit more detail about what we'll be doing. You'll be writing a 1 to 2 page paper. Doesn't have to be super long, but I do want it to be thorough. So thorough but concise is great. 1 to 2 pages, single spaced, 12-point font, Times New Roman font, and you'll pick one of the following topics. There is a rule. So when I post this, as soon as class is over, you'll go into the comment section and write which topic you're going to choose. I'm going to say only 2 people per topic. There should be plenty of things here that would interest you. So if it's already two people already take a topic you want, there's probably something else that would be interesting to you too. If there's something on this list that you think should be there and is not, feel free to reach out to me and just propose it. You could say, hey, you don't have anything about metalwork. I'm really interested in metallurgy. And um, anyway, you can go through and you can talk about that, or you can propose something else. Um, anyway, when I post this, say which one you're taking. Caravel and Carrack are both types of ships that were used. Latin cells are the triangular cells that helped them so that they could go forward even when they were facing a headwind. Bombards and culverins are types of cannons that they used on the ships. The broadside cannon placement was something that the Portuguese introduced before them. They were putting cannons on the main deck. The Portuguese started putting them below deck and having what we see in all the ships that open up the window and the cannon comes out. Gave them a better angle to shoot at other ships. Um, Astrolabe, magnetic compass, cross staff, back staff, quadrant, chip log, and sandglass, nonius. Those were all instruments that they used to help navigate by the stars or by the sun or by their trying to find their global position because they didn't have all the satellites we do now. Um, Hull sheathing, a big problem that we'll learn about as we go through the class is worms. There are worms that would get into the wood and start eating the wood, and the ship would almost disintegrate as they were traveling. And so, um, hull sheathing is things that they would do to protect the hull of the boat, the bottom of the boat, from things like barnacles or these worms that would just get in and eat the boat from the inside, I guess. Um, Careening, the return route. This was more the study of the trade winds that allowed them to move around the Atlantic faster instead of just going along the coast, going out into the ocean. And Lexidrome, and then there's 3 people here that you can study. So pick one of those. When I post this, as soon as class is over, go in, tell me which one you're going to be doing the research on. As I mentioned, there's a limit of 2 people per topic. And if someone else takes your topic, feel free to work together on this as a research project together, where you can help both with the writing, whatever you want to do, it up to you. All right, so that's for next week's homework. No reading, but there is this writing assignment that will take the place of the reading and the time that we would devote to reading. Yes, Daniel, go ahead.
What exactly do you mean by come and tell me? Which one?
Sorry, I guess on the Mighty Networks app in the chat, or the comment section below the when I introduce the assignment and give all of the particulars, and there will be a list. Scroll down to the bottom and comment on it and say which one you want to
Okay.
take. Sorry, I talking faster. My mouth is moving faster than my brain, I think. So I didn't mean to say come and tell me. Write it in the comment section of that assignment module. Is that more clear? Okay, great. All right, so for the introductions, if your name is on the list here, that means you have not yet introduced yourself in the class. So I'll stop sharing my screen in just a second. And if you would, raise your hand and then I'll call on you and unmute yourself. And so it will be your name, your age, where you're from, and where you're living. Sometimes that's different. Um, Sometimes it's the same. And then your favorite ice cream flavor, and then your favorite hobby or hobbies. And then I might ask a follow-up question or two. So if your name is on that bullet point list, it is shrinking. I think we might get through it pretty quickly or pretty soon, so that we'll all know each other and we'll all know everyone's favorite ice cream. And yeah, all right, I'll stop sharing my screen. And if you're on that list, any volunteers to go first today? If not, I will start calling. Okay, great. Eliza, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Eliza Foxley. I turned 14 in 10 days.
Woo.
Yeah, I'm from Culpeper, Virginia, but I'm currently living in Sebastian, Florida. If you don't know what that is, it's like 2 hours south of Disney World. I like every ice cream flavor I've tasted except for two of them. And I'd say my top three would be Moose Tracks and Ben and Jerry's The Tonight Dough or their fish food. And then hobbies, I like reading, acting, sword fighting, hiking, camping, and canoeing.
Wow. That's a pretty adventurous list of hobbies. Sword fighting. Do you do lessons for that? Like fencing, or tell us more about your sword
Oh,
fighting.
yeah, okay. So I do two types. I do stage combat, which I learned from one of my plays, and then my dad, he knows historic European martial arts, aka medieval longswording. So he's
Oh,
teaching me that. Yeah.
that's awesome. That's really cool. And so you said you like all ice cream flavors except two. What are the two you don't like?
Okay, so it's kind of funny. My dad was he played a prank on us. He got macaroni and cheese and dill pickle flavored ice creams and then told us that they were mint chip and mango. And yeah, dill pickle's disgusting. Don't try it. It's gross.
Oh, that's funny. That reminds me of Jelly Belly has Harry Potter jelly beans that have gross flavors too, like throw up and dirty shoe and cut grass and stuff like that. Pretty gross. That's funny. Cool. Well, welcome to the class. We're glad to have you here. When we start talking about sword fighting and combat, maybe you can give us some tips on what's actually happening, how they're doing it. That's pretty awesome stuff.
Okay.
Thanks, Eliza. All right, got time for a few more. Excellent, Anna. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Anna. I'm 16 years old. I was born in New York, but currently live in San Antonio, Texas. My favorite flavor of ice cream is probably grasshopper, and my hobbies are playing the guitar, tumbling, and baking.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite music genre that you like to play on the guitar?
Not really. Pop is kind of hard to get the tempo and beat down, but really just anything.
Cool. Cool. What's your favorite song to play?
Probably A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Good choice. Maybe someday we'll have to have proof of that. Just kidding. That's so cool. Music instruments are so awesome. Good job. Welcome to the class, Anna. Also, I guess one more question. What part of New York were you born in?
I was born in Staten Island.
Ooh, down by the city. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I lived in upstate New York for a few years, but we were 2.5 cities, or 2.5 cities, 2.5 hours north of New York City. So out kind of in the country near the Adirondacks. But thought maybe it would be in that area. Cool. Excellent. Daniel, your hand's up. I think, are you introducing yourself or you have a question? I think you've already introduced yourself.
No, I have a question for Anna.
Okay.
Anna, in New York, how are they kind of remembering today, September 11th?
I don't know. I only lived there till I was 3, so I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, how are they celebrating it today?
I don't know that either.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. I'm sure they're doing some sort of memorial for it. That was a huge, huge event in history. And it's crazy to think back. It feels like it was yesterday, but our whole world changed that day. So many things changed. And I mean, all of you guys are not old enough to know what life was like before September 11th, but I was in a bowling alley in Germany and I was so I was a missionary for my church, and we were in a bowling alley, and the owner of the bowling alley came up to us and said, "Hey, are you guys American?" I said, "Yeah, we're American." He's like, "Your country is under attack." And I didn't believe him, but he took us into a back room and showed us it was the BBC, England, and so we saw part of it happening live on television at a bowling alley in Germany on our kind of off day, where the day we do most of our grocery shopping and stuff like that. It was crazy. The world totally changed. So I'd be curious too, Daniel, what they're doing to commemorate and some sort of memorial service for that. Um, we'll have to look into it. Truman, your hand's up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add a little bit to the Twin Towers thing, if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, so one thing I've learned, well, one thing that has happened is in the airports now, like back then, my dad told me they didn't have the security thing where they look through your luggage. But now, metal detectors, searching through your bags, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then
Asking questions.
my dad told me about a bunch of miracles happening, about people running late to work or something, or running late to the airport, and that it ends up attaching to that if they would have made it on time, they would have possibly been killed,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
really crazy.
it is. There's a lot of things that happened. I think just yeah. I think that God has his hand in our lives a lot of times when we don't see it or don't recognize it. Yeah, one more comment. Go ahead, Kai.
Now, before the attack, sometimes people are allowed to go to the cockpit and talk with the pilots during flight, or on certain airlines, and so now they don't,
Yeah.
and have the door locks.
Yeah, they take a lot more precautions. I mean, when it used to be your whole family that when you were dropped off at the airport, your whole family could go to the gate and sit with you, and you'd say goodbye as you walk on the plane instead of at the very beginning when you're starting to get in the security line. Things have totally changed. It's funny. I mean, we're here talking about history in this class, right? And there's so many things, little events that happen over time that change things for in huge ways. And I think one of the interesting things, there's so many parallels of events like that, which are a tragedy, and other events that occur that we've read about this week of finding different information, finding this, finding that, learning that one of the best map makers of all time was wrong. He thought that Africa went down to the bottom of the map and there was no route to go from the Atlantic Ocean into the Indian Ocean. Um, and just one simple discovery changed history, changed the world, changed everyone's way of thinking. So it's interesting how these events can change the course of time And who knows? I mean, from one day to the next, so many things can change. That's it for as far as the time we have. So, Charlene, Addison, you're off the hook this week. We'll get you both next week. I think we are almost through. I think we'll be down to like 3 or 4 people that haven't introduced themselves. So next week we'll catch up with you both. All right, let me share my screen again. I think we're back to sharing. Did it go through? Seeing it? Thumbs
I
up,
can't see it. I can't see it.
thumbs down. Uh-oh.
Oh, I can see it. I can see it.
Okay. Maybe my internet's lagging a little bit today. So, all right. Well, I'm glad it's sharing now. Let's get moving on. So I want to give a quick recap of what we've learned. So we've read about Marco Polo and his writings. We've learned about all of these places that exist, the cool things that are there, all of the spices, the gold, the gems, the jewels, all sorts of things that are there in India that we know about that people were already purchasing. So they knew about black pepper before Marco Polo got there. But now Marco Polo has given us writings and accounts of seeing black pepper fields and things like that. We've learned about Prester John, who is this mythical person that somehow was also a real person. The myth of him really kind of expanded what was the truth. They said he had these armies that could conquer anyone. He had all this gold, he had all this power and prestige, and they just needed to find Prester John so that they could unite forces with him and go take back Jerusalem. And so we found out that I guess they haven't truly found out yet, but this Pedro de Covilla had found the person who was Prester John. Turns out not as powerful, didn't have much of an army, didn't have a lot of gold, but was Christian. Um, and so they've learned about Prester John. They're still looking for him, and they've kind of found him, but they don't fully know it yet in Europe because they haven't received word yet. We've also learned about the fall of Constantinople. So Christians used to have Turkey over here. And because the Christians had Turkey, the spice trade could go over from India, if you see my pointer, could go overland through Turkey and then to Italy, to Spain, Portugal, and everywhere else. But the Islam, the Ottoman Empire comes in and they take over Turkey and they cut off access to all of this. So at this point in time, the Islamic nations they have all of North Africa, they have Jerusalem, now they have Constantinople and Turkey. And so you have Italy and Greece and Spain over here that are holding down the fort for the Christian side. If you remember, there's from the beginning of all of this, there's this constant holy war that's going on between the Christians and the Muslims, and so they cut off this land trade. Spices start to get more and more expensive. Kings are unwilling to change their eating habits. They want more spice. They're spending all sorts of money on getting these spices that are supposed to be super rare and hard to get. And then Portugal decides to send out Bartolomeu Dias to find this route down here. So this black line you see is Vasco da Gama's route, and we'll start talking about him in 2 weeks. But Bartolomeu Dias got down here to about this second touch with land from Vasco da Gama, far enough to realize, okay, Africa ends, and we can actually get around the south end. At the same time, Pedro de Covilla is following this route. He takes the green route here, goes down the Arabian Peninsula over to Ethiopia, and he makes it over to India and visits Calicut and Goa and sees the amazing markets that are there. There is such rich trading, so many spices that are just in abundance, and they are super cheap compared to what they were paying in Europe. I don't know the exact exchange rates or whatever you would call it, but maybe what he was looking at is when you're in Calicut, the pepper is 10 cents per pound. I'm making this up. I don't know. I'm sure it wasn't 10 cents per pound, but let's just say 10 cents per pound if you buy it in Calicut. But then when these the people who are trading it bring it over here, go up past this into the Mediterranean Sea and sell it to Europe, and they're selling it for $20 a pound. So buying it for 10 cents, selling it for 20, and they realize this is crazy that we could come here and buy this for this cheap. We really need to get here. So they have all of this knowledge. They have Marco Polo's writings. They are looking for Prester John, still hoping to find him. Constantinople fell, so the spice costs have even increased more and they're more rare. And now they've found out we can get around the south of Africa and the prices are super cheap if we actually make it to India. So this is the background. We are all set, ready for Vasco da Gama to make this trip following this black line all the way over to Calicut and Goa to start collecting these spices. So that's where we are up to date. Um, I was curious. So as you guys know, sometimes our class we do according to my research. This was one of my according to my research things. What were the spices that they were actually going after? So this is a short list. There's more than this, but these are the more of the main ones. Black pepper. When's the last time any of you ate black pepper? Probably like today. I mean, I've had today for lunch today, I had a homemade curry that I made that has like six of these things in it. Um, it's black pepper, ginger, cinnamon. What's interesting is in America, I'm not there. We don't have pumpkin spice here in Portugal, but it seems like in the fall, everything is like pumpkin spice, right? Pumpkin spice this, pumpkin spice candles, pumpkin spice spray, pumpkin spice, hot chocolate, all sorts of things. Every one of the pumpkin spice spices come from this region. So if you love pumpkin pie, if you love cinnamon rolls, if you love anything that has these in it, mace, nutmeg, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, pepper, that's what they are going for. That was the big deal, wanting to get all of this stuff. I thought it was super interesting that black pepper, they called it black gold. It was sometimes even used as currency. So the whole saying worth its weight in gold was very true for black pepper. So you could use it as currency. I'll give you a pound of black pepper for whatever it is that you were wanting to purchase. So I was curious how they harvest black pepper. This is what a field of black pepper looks like. And it's interesting because at the time, and we'll talk about this because a few of you pulled this same thought out. Um, at the time, they thought pepper might grow on rocks. Maybe it was in the ground like a gem. Maybe it was magically produced, or it was produced in a rare place, but it was guarded by poisonous snakes or deadly plants, or like they had all of these crazy mythical almost stories about where black pepper came from to sort of build up this cost. The reason you're paying $20 per pound, again, I don't know about the true prices, but it was expensive. The reason you're paying this is because it comes from this faraway place that's guarded by snakes and it's only in this one spot and it's rare. And so we have to charge this. And so when they found out that it grows in fields like this and it is so abundant and it's so cheap, um, it was kind of a myth that was hard to quash because people couldn't believe that something so abundant could cost so much. Anyway, it was just really interesting to me. You grow the vines grow on these supports, so it ends up looking like a tree. They take 3 or 4 years to produce their first berries, but then they start producing after that. You harvest the berries while they're still green, um, before they're fully ripened, and then they hand pick them and they briefly boil them in hot water, clean them, and then sun dry them for a week, and then you have pepper. But I just thought it's so crazy. Like all of this is happening in large part for this plant that is just so abundant in that part of the world. People are just really, really wanting their black pepper. And it's something that we have everyone here in this class probably can go to their kitchen and pull out just this big thing of black pepper that they use to cook with every day. Um, and it's super cheap. Like go to the store and it's less than $1 for a canister of it. But that is something that was motivating them to try and get around the whole earth on a sailboat. Take 2 years to go and get a shipment of black pepper. Just crazy to me to think about that. Something that we have so easily now was a big part of the motivation for doing these crazy adventure exploration stuff that we talk about. Finally, just going back to this monument that's in Lisbon, where these sailors were taking off and leaving Lisbon to go on their journey. We talked last week about Diogo Cao. He's the one that found the Congo River and went up the river and left a padrão, one of these things, markers here. Bartolomeu Dias, which we'll talk a little bit more about today later. And then on the other side, we have Pedro da Cavilla, who went and did a lot of exploration for the king as a spy, someone who could fit in and just sort of be unnoticed because he just fit in so well. Anyway, pretty cool stories, I think. All right, I want to move now to some of the things that you guys pulled out and liked. Lessons between the lines. So, what can we learn from chapters 5 and 6 that we read this past week? What were some of the lessons that you learned? What stood out to you?
I'll go because it's kind of quiet.
Yeah, thank you,
So
David.
I
I
thought it
love
was
it.
interesting. I thought it was kind of interesting that like the merchants can change how a war can go by like what they sell and how they sell it or like who they sell it to. Because like they sold spices, like they bought it from cheap in India and sold it really expensive in Europe. So it drained like Europe's wealth and it made them like just more poor and harder to fight the other people, the Muslims.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that still exist today? Do you think companies like Apple or Google or Samsung, do you think that they have power to influence political maneuvers like that still?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not as much because I think that there are enough resources that we don't rely so much on one type of product or one producer. But yeah, they totally could. And if you block off a trade route, the price goes up. People get a little bit more angry about wanting their black pepper, and it starts to create a motivation to go to war and to take back Constantinople. Let's get it back so that we can open up this overland trade route again. Big motivator. I think that's cool and totally true today. I think we see I not to get any, I'm not going into the political stuff of this, but just interesting to see there's been so much discussion in our world about tariffs and things and how tariffs that the United States will set, how that affects day-to-day operations, day-to-day people's lives, even in Portugal. Just trade in one country and in certain things can really affect a lot of people and make some people happy, some people angry. But yeah, money is so influential on things that happen. Thanks, David. I want to talk about this second one here. I found it interesting that quite a lot of people who lived back then believed in anything that they heard. Like, like the way that you get diamonds is you feed an eagle and then you go and find the eagle's waste and you pick through it and then you find the diamonds. Like the eagle is creating diamonds. Like how does anybody believe that? Anyway, there were so many stories and myths and fables going around, especially concerning the medicines and spices, and yet most of the crazy, unreliable ideas and theories were believed. think it's sometimes, if not most of the time, more important and safe to decide things for yourself, come up with your own remedies, and be smart about who and what you believe. What do you guys think about that? How could they believe all of those things? Like, oh yeah, you get black pepper from this pit that's in the middle of India that's guarded by these snakes that if you look at the snake, you turn to stone. I don't know. How did they believe that? How can we avoid falling into the same pitfalls? Yeah, James, go ahead.
For one thing, I think they didn't have as much, they weren't, knowledge wasn't as accessible to them. A lot of the common folk couldn't read, and so they had to rely on other people. And even then, they still didn't have a great understanding of science. And so a lot of science was guessing.
Yeah. And just blindly guessing, right? I have a little bit of influence. Eh, I'm going to just tell this. I think it's in a pit somewhere. And then someone, yeah, and I've heard it's guarded by snakes. Yeah, and that turn you into stone. And then Alexander the Great comes along with mirrors, and the snakes turn themselves into stone. Like it just crazy. We are so lucky. We have so much information at our fingertips. Sometimes I wonder if we take advantage of it, or if maybe it makes life too easy for us. I wonder if we're starting to have so much information that maybe the chat GPT version of life is starting to take over and become the fables that we believe. I mean, it's not fables, but I sometimes will look at chat GPT for different things, and sometimes it's been so wrong. And I've seen people that have taken information that AI has given them and accepted it as truth and passed it along as truth, even though it was incorrect. And I wonder if maybe that's the direction we're heading of believing myths and stories that are not true. I don't know. I loved learning about how even back then people used some of the things we use today. I loved reading about different ingredients and remedies they'd use for different purposes. I loved connecting that to our use of the same things today, like spices and teas. What else? What else did they have right? They weren't wrong on everything. I think they were pretty wrong on using black pepper to improve eyesight, though. Did anybody read that in the book and try it? Like, my eyes aren't seeing great today. I'm gonna go put black pepper, rub them in my eyes. I don't know. But they got that wrong, clearly, right? I mean, I'm not gonna go put black pepper in my eyes to make my eyes see better. It sounds like a lot of pain. But what did they get right? What were some of the things they started to use that we still do today? Or maybe, has anyone ever had an upset stomach or felt nauseous and the doctor said, go drink some ginger ale? Has anyone ever had ginger ale to help with nausea or an upset stomach? Do you know why ginger ale is good? Well, they found long time ago that ginger helps calm your stomach, an upset stomach. So like if you're feeling nauseous and you have ginger ale or you eat ginger snaps that has real ginger in it, they've found that ginger can help with that. There are a lot of teas out there that we still drink to help calm people that like to calm down. They started to use things like that. Truman, go ahead.
Mm. I just want to say, I actually drink a lot of herbal tea, so not actual tea, but herbal tea.
Hmm.
Like I have a lot of like my favorite's peppermint, but like I use them like when I'm sick or that. And then during my cruise, I like whenever we were at a restaurant, I'd ask for ginger ale instead of anything else. And every time I was on deck, I'd always have ginger ale with me because I was getting an upset stomach. So yeah, I have it. I've used a lot of that stuff, and it's crazy to see hear that. Well, I kind of understand that they used that back then, but it's crazy to see that we still use it to help out
Yeah,
us
yeah.
for sure.
So they had some crazy ideas, but they weren't all wrong with all of those ideas. Cool. Grace, go ahead.
So we've got a cabin up in Priest Lake, Idaho, and most of the time we like to drive up there. And so that can be a 12 to 13-hour drive one way. And so plenty of the time I we usually get ginger ale or something like that because I get extremely car sick and it's not fun at all. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, totally a perfect example of combating car sickness with a remedy that these guys found way back in the age of discovery. If you take a little ginger ale, it helps with that. Maybe they were using it for seasickness. I don't know. Kind of a similar thing. Cool. Christopher, yes, maybe. Are you able to unmute or no? All right. We'll have to get to your comment later. That's too bad. All right. Last thing on this before we move to the next one. I thought it was interesting. I want to talk about this. I thought it was interesting how the Pope was the ruler for all of Europe. It's very different from today's Pope. What do you guys think of kings? The King of Portugal, the King and Queen of Spain making decisions, but before they make the final decision, going and making sure it's okay with the Pope, and before we go ahead and do this. What do you guys think of that? Is that cool? Is it strange? What do you think?
Leaving and joining like every 5 seconds.
Oh, Christopher, you're unmuted now. You can go ahead and give your
Oh,
comment.
oh yeah. I was just gonna say, man, I need some ginger ale right now.
Staring at your phone while driving. Yeah. Ginger ale, ginger snaps, peppermint tea might help a little bit. Yeah, cool stuff. Excellent. All right, Oliver, go ahead.
To answer your question about the Pope,
Yeah.
I think it was really bad that he was like the ruler of Europe and how they would go to him for advice because I don't think one person should have that much control over everyone else, like no matter their intentions. That's why I like the how they have the Catholic Church organized today. It's kind of similar to ours. There is like the top guy or whatever, but there's so many people under them that it's like not their decision, and so I like how it's been changed, I guess.
Yeah. There's a bigger separation between church and state. The government and the church are separate, right? Um, yeah, very different today. Braden, go ahead.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
You're right. And we even got a glimpse of that into some of the decisions that are happening and will happen between Portugal and Spain. So still today, so during the Age of Discovery, Portugal was on top. Spain was much bigger, had less money at that time, but now Spain is doing much better than Portugal. They're bigger, they have more money, their economy's better. The cost of living is a little higher there, but people make more money. And so Portugal is sort of like the little brother to Spain, and there's still kind of a rivalry between the countries when they play soccer, for example. Um, they are a rival of ours in Portugal. And so it's interesting when some of the decisions are made. The Pope at the time was from Spain and showed favoritism to Spain in some of the decisions they're making. So you have all these political decisions that are being made by a religious leader, but the religious leader is showing favoritism And so I think it really becomes kind of a corrupt system. They're corrupt in a lot of ways, um, more than just dealing with Portugal and Spain. But yeah, it's interesting. And your comment about it becoming corrupt, that's totally what was happening at that time with the Catholic Church, with the Pope. I think it's undeniable with the way history goes at that time that it was a corrupt thing. Not just my opinion. I think it's undeniable based on the facts we have. Truman, go ahead.
That made me remember of the war over soccer. Have you ever heard of the war that started because of soccer?
No, I'll have to look into it though.
It,
I would believe
it's
it.
it's really funny and crazy because like they start arming themselves when they play against each other. They like bring guns and stuff. It's kind of
Yikes.
crazy.
That
You
sounds
should look at
crazy, and I believe it. They love their soccer here. Anytime that the Portuguese men's national team plays, things shut down. Everyone's watching it everywhere. When they were in the European Cup this last year, they won the championship. But like if you, and it's hot here in Portugal, and not everyone has air conditioning. Most people don't. So you just have all your windows open, right? And so whenever there was a goal scored, like you hear it from your neighborhood. Like Cristiano Ronaldo scores a goal, and then you'll, before it even shows on your screen, maybe their feed is faster or something, but you hear like the neighborhood erupt and clapping and yelling and cheering. It's pretty awesome how much they love it. It's really fun to be a part of it, but they get pretty serious about it. And when Portugal beats Spain, it is like a holiday. It's great. So even today, there's still that rivalry. But it's interesting that back then the Pope played into it, and the Pope sometimes had Spanish ties and would give them a little bit of favoritism. And so there was a little bit of stuff going on that wasn't maybe how I feel like a church should be operating. They were making decisions based on bribes and different things that I don't think should be done in a church. Anyway, we'll find out more even about with the conquests and the things that were happening. Um, I don't know. Vasco da Gama and his men may have been given like a 3 year, whatever you do over the next 3 years is already forgiven. You won't even need to repent for it. You've already repented, and so for the next 3 years, you don't have to repent. You're not going to sin. And so it's interesting that a pope would come out and say, as long as you are fighting Islam, it's not a sin. Go ahead and do it because you're advancing Christianity. And so I think they lost their way. And that will even lead us into one of the next comments. Maybe. Oh, maybe I didn't put it up here. Just talking about maybe as the Crusaders considering that they could be repercussions for conquering and killing people. Just it's interesting that the church was getting involved in decisions that I don't know, they're making probably weren't doing what they're supposed to. I liked that they were taking Christianity to the world. I did not like the method that they chose to do it in many instances. I think missionary work is probably the right way to go. To teach people and educate them instead of forcing them to do stuff with the sword. Anyway, all right, a few of my favorite things. What did you guys like about chapters 5 and 6? What stood out to you? What did you think was cool that's happening of what we've read so far? Nothing. Kind of boring story.
Too quiet.
Who said that? Is that Daniel that spoke up? Daniel, what was your favorite part so far?
Well, it was kind of busy this week, so I didn't get to listen to much. But I do remember that I like how Portugal is so supportive of these people, even when they're even when the plans sound crazy or they think they can't do it, they still do it, and it leads to great exploration discoveries.
Yeah, that is cool too. I like that too. And I thought it was interesting that they sent out people on land. They sent Bartolomeo Diaz to go in his boat. And I think that they were taking steps to make sure that they're confirming what they thought before they sent out this huge grand expedition that's coming next. But yeah, I thought it was cool that they spent a lot of money and time and resources trying to find a way to get to India, a way to solve these issues that they wanted to solve. That's really cool. Um, I liked these quotes. I liked, let's see, he, Henry the Navigator, was a single flawed figure without whom Europe's knowledge of what lay beyond its shores might have crept forward at a far slower rate, without whom Vasco da Gama might have never sailed for India or Columbus for America. I like finding stories like this. I'll even just read the rest. I like this quote, how it said Henry the Navigator was flawed. While that was something that the author added and probably not widely thought at the time he lived, I liked thinking about even though he was a just man, he was able to change the world so much. Oh, even though he was just a man, he was able to change the world so much. Yes, he messed up a few times, made some major mistakes, but inspired so many explorers after him, and is the reason that we understood what the world is today. I think that that's so true. I think so many of the people that we revere, so many of our heroes have a flaw or two or many. I think it's important for us to be able to see the flaws, recognize them, but still see the good that they're doing, still see the heroic acts they are performing, so that we can still try and become inspired and improve ourselves based on their example in those ways. Taking the good and kind of shunning off the bad parts, trying to take the best of them and use it to help make ourselves better. Um, one last thing that I wanted to talk about. I really like the video about Bartolomeo Diaz. I think he should be recognized more for what he did. Without him, who knows how long it would have taken for people to sail around the tip of Africa. I totally agree. Bartolomeo Diaz gets back from his voyage, and what happens to him? The king's like, all right, you used to be my top guy. You're not anymore. Sort of like demotes him. He no longer is leading any of these really awesome voyages. And like in today's world, I think it's like if I were king and I said, "All right, Oliver and James, you guys fly a rocket ship to Mars." And then they make it to the moon and come back, and I just say, "Oh, you failed. You didn't make it to Mars." Like it's strange that the king at that time would not recognize, but they made it to the moon. Like they didn't go all the way to India like he wanted them to, but they found that the path is open. They found that they could do it. I just think it's so crazy that he came back and was demoted. And I mean, history has been kind to Bartolomeu Dias. He's still recognized. He is known. Portuguese people view him as a hero now. Maybe they didn't at that time. But it's just crazy to me that he did something no one had ever done. But because it wasn't exactly what the king wanted, he was sort of shunned and just kind of became another guy on a boat. He ended up going with Vasco da Gama on his trip. He ended up going with Cabral and helped. He was part of the group, I think, that found Brazil. So he was still a huge part of major explorations, but he just was one of the guys instead of the leader. It's interesting that he wanted to continue going and he wept when he had to turn around but his crew was going to commit mutiny. His ships were not in good shape. Had to turn around and go back. I think he should have been given a little bit more credit back then, even more today too. Um, I think his story is interesting. That's it for today, you guys. So thank you for your discussion. Thank you for all of the stuff you're putting on the Mighty Networks app. Next week, remember, there's no reading, but you're going to have the writing assignment that I'll post probably 5 or 10 minutes. So go on to the Mighty Networks app in the comments section, say what you're going to do your research on and writing on. Next week, be prepared to talk about it for 2 or 3 minutes to just teach us. For example, if you pick the Caravel, tell us about what are the characteristics of this type of ship? Why was it used? What were its limitations? And be ready to just give us 2 minute overview of what a caravel is. Same with any of these other topics. Let's see. Supplemental content. I'll just provide videos or podcast about some of these different technologies and different people that we'll be talking about that helped give us the tools that allowed them to navigate in the Southern Hemisphere, do things that they weren't already doing. So that's it for this week. Thanks everybody for the discussion. Thanks everybody for participating online. I'll post this in a few minutes so you can go ahead and select what you want to work on for next week. Again, 1 to 2 page paper. Do the research for it, write the paper, be ready to talk about it for 2 or 3 minutes next week in next week's class. I'll stop the recording here and stop sharing my screen. I'll be around if you have any questions about the writing assignment or anything else. But have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time.